Hello, my friends. This is David Drake here, and I just wanted to make a special video for you. I know we've had a series of Q&A sessions for our Guiding Lights retreat, and we had an unusually large number of issues with our Zoom account in particular. And we recognize that not all of you were able to get into the Q&A session that you had signed up for. And I wanted to offer my personal apology that we couldn't get that sorted faster. But I wanted to make this video available for you and kind of walk you through the slides that you would have seen had you been able to be there to help you decide if the Guiding Lights retreat is for you. For me, it's a wonderful opportunity this year to return to doing retreat, which was in many ways my favorite thing to do prior to the pandemic. And we have found through our first cohort this year that it actually works just as well online in many ways and offers us to reach more people and for you to connect to more members of our community. So I hope you'll enjoy this video and that'll help you make your decision and that you'll choose to come and join us as the retreat begins next week. So I've just got a few slides to get us started and get us into what we're going to be covering in the retreat. So if you've worked with me at all, you'll recognize this photo. It's one of my two most frequently used photos because it encapsulates one of our core principles, which is to lighten our loads. It's a time in the world's history that can feel very heavy very quickly if we're not careful, even for those of us who work in these kind of spaces like coaching. And so, particularly for those of us who feel things, sense things, care for things, it's a hard time. And so, there's a temptation to want to go and learn more and gather more and carry more, which in the end becomes often counterproductive. And I know for myself, having done some deep inner work in recent weeks, these patterns that live within us, often unconscious to us, that sooner or later cause us to recognize, hey, it feels awfully heavy in my pack. And so we're hoping that one of the gifts that will come to the retreat for you is to lighten your load, to see what can I take out of my backpack that is not mine to carry or is no longer serving me or may not allow me to be present in ways I would like to now. And so as we think about what this retreat is like and what it offers you, I wanted to give you this quote. So Nathan is one of my favorite psychological writers. I think he just has a lot of brilliant insights into how people tick, if you will, and how helping people to mature and grow actually works. I was at a conference recently, and I must have heard the phrase "driving change" a dozen times from various people on stage, etc. And having worked in the change space in some form for for 45 years. I can say that yes, there's a desire for momentum and focus and et cetera, but you really can't predict change, nor plan for change or prepare for change. And really, I came to this idea of what if life was a feast and we're just going to gather some things we think are going to be useful for us like this buffet here that these dear friends are sharing, and wait for the self or our psyche, the soul, whatever language you choose to use, to appear in its own time and its own way, to make available to you what wants attention. And so this really describes the retreat. And so, what we heard often from the first cohort when we did a check in midway through and then again at the end during the celebration was that for many of them, it wasn't like they had huge epiphanies necessarily, although some did. It wasn't like they didn't invest in each step of the way. But what they marveled at was when they looked back, they said, I'm different now. I'm categorically different. This is different about me, or I'm doing this differently. And I can't quite tell how I got here. But for me, that's actually the nature of most change because the person that you're becoming through the course of the change is slowly appearing across the journey. And only when that part of yourself comes to the fruition can it recognize, oh, this is where I was that person there, I was that way there, and now I'm this. I'm more peaceful, or I'm more decisive, or I've made some choices. And so I'm hoping that you'll have that experience as well. that we have a process that's very organic and very natural. And so that you can relax and just be in it rather than worrying about it, how to make something happen to make change occur. So we're not going to think that way. We're going to let the self in us know best what we need and attract you to what needs to happen in the sessions for you to get what you most want from retreat. If you have any questions, the MI Connect email address is at the very end. You can email us, you can email me. If you're a member of our circle community, you can post a question there as well. We'd be happy to get back to you. So I just want to share a couple of things about these three key points about your experience at the Guiding Lights Retreat. So we live in a time when it's pretty easy to feel fractured or fragmented, like trying to hold this together, that sense we should hold this together, are all a bit much. And so the maturation in this retreat is really just helping you find a sense of wholeness again, as much as you can. It's and then to look at some things we can do to help make that happen, to compost what you no longer need. So we don't make distinctions between good or bad so much in the retreat. We just focus on what is and things that might be dying or that might be you might be letting go of or things that don't serve you. It's not like we throw them away. It's like we compost them so that energy was stuck there is now free to do more things for you. You can curate, like there's a thousand things to distract us every day. How do we curate, have the discipline to curate what is essential for you now and what's not essential for you now? What you'll find as you move through the retreat is your choices become much simpler and easier to make. Why? Because you're not distracted as much. You can really hone in on what you need. And then to then channel that rather than trying to bring the entire kitchen, including the sink, to what you're doing. What if I just could channel more directly what's the most essential? And so that again is all based in our capacity to center ourselves. So to be present in this moment in time, and when we do all these together, we can contribute more fully with ease. And so this sense of ease is an important feature of the retreat. And Lord knows most of us could appreciate more of that in our life and work right now. But I want to make a distinction about this is not called the Guiding Lighthouse Retreat. To be a guiding light is not about standing stoically on your own. I have to light the way for others in the darkness, and it's an efforting that's not necessary. And so in this AI generated graphic here of a lightning bug or firefly, it's about being in community with fellow guides to be able to shine as yourself and to glow when that's needed, but then to relax when it's not. And so we find that one of the things that people most appreciate about the retreat is the connections they make with other people. And so I think you'll find a lot of kindred spirits if you are to come. So let's just talk a bit about what the retreat is like and what it includes. So these are things that we'll be doing in the retreat. So when we meet together live, we will always have a guided, focused meditation, which allows us, using one simple model the entire time, to really hone in on what do I want to focus on this week around this topic. And rather than trying to chase after it, which is often what we do, we're going to drop into it. So the meditation is a sort of a downward spiral, but in a positive sense of moving towards essence, moving towards what's true, moving away from what's distracting. In doing so, both in getting ready for that, but also in noticing what emerges from that, we'll engage in lots of personal reflections. You'll have a journal as part of your handbook this year, so a chance to take notes right in the space where we're working that given week. There'll be moments in our group sessions where I'll provide, for lack of a better term, some spiritual direction, kind of hone in on questions that are emerging for you as you are doing the exercises and kind of dropping into what's happening for you. We can actually do some real-time work together. You also have pods, which you can be in, talk with your peers. We'll have breakout rooms in all of our live sessions. And then lastly, about this idea of life recalibration. So what do I mean? So what I've observed over time, the word transformative is used too often in things like coaching, and often inappropriately. And we find sometimes that we imagine that change is this gigantic thing. And sometimes it is, particularly if it involves a significant event. But the kind of change we're working on in the retreat is more the subtle, gradual, organic change to let go of a habit or adopt a new mindset or shift a little behavior. And so, what I've found over decades of doing this kind of work is that rather than like trying to bite off this big piece or set a giant goal for later, it's much more of these sort of small cycles. And so you'll find as you move through the retreat that everything that you're doing feels relatively simple and deceptively so. But what it allows you to do is sort of take a more frequent, deeper immersion in a single focus and just kind of keep moving through it. And what happens is that there's a recalibration. It's not like it's a jump to something else. It's like the whole thing kind of shifts and suddenly appears very different or you feel different. And you just start making a number of those small turns across the retreat, which then in the end adds up often to big change. So structurally, what does that look like? Well, so these are the sessions we're going to have together. So we'll have a bit of an orientation, and then there's sort of these pairs of sessions, and they follow the same pattern. So the initial one is sort of the core material about that maturity, a guided sort of practice to drop into that maturity, and that's our initiation into that cycle. Then you'll go kind of go off and do some work on your own and within your peer pod. And then we'll come back for integration. But integration is not just integrating kind of the work with that maturity, but it also represents a threshold. And this is where the five gates comes in. The gates provide literally a gate, but a threshold between one maturity and the next maturity. So, for example, the more capacity we have to hold emotion, the more we can actually see, which is the hallmark of spiritual maturity. And so each maturity kind of creates a deeper foundation for the one that follows. And we'll just keep following that cycle across all five maturities. Again, you'll have opportunities to work in small groups, to ask questions in the forum, and write in your journal, all of which will help you kind of be on the journey that you're on. And my encouragement here is just to take each experience, each insight as it is, without trying to immediately grab it and say, what does this mean and what should I do? Because what you'll find, there's a cumulative effect of these ongoing cycles, which in the end, at various points along the way, will start to reveal kind of what is wanting to be seen here. So this is our structure, and we'll have a wonderful time in the end. And we've added a couple of sessions which are really about reflection and integration. And then we'll have a celebration at the end, which is a great opportunity to share with each other kind of what you've discovered. So again, here's our live sessions. They're offered twice each day they're all on Tuesdays. You'll get Zoom invites for all of them. Every session is recorded, so in case you miss one, you can always go back into the circle space and watch it. Or maybe you come to the AM one, but you're curious sometimes what the PM session's talking about. You can watch theirs as well. You've got a bunch of resources and assignments to enrich each of your sort of pairs of sessions. Based on some requests from last time, we're going to add some more resources on each of the five gates, recognizing that some of them may be newer for you or completely new for you. And so we want you to feel equipped to make the most of that threshold session. We've got a forum space just for this cohort. You'll be divided into peer pods. To by sort of time zone as best as possible to make it easier to get together. And these are great opportunities to integrate what you're learning. You're also welcome to form impromptu pods if you want to, maybe around people that share some common interests with you. And then lastly, the handbook and journal will be kind of your anchor and guide for participating in the program as a whole. So, last but not least, I want to just share an example of the kind of things that we're going to do, and then show you the core model that we build the whole retreat around. So this is a practice I learned from my dear friend and Buddhist teacher Gregory Kramer. I've sort of adapted it a bit for our purpose, but it really mirrors the unfolding of the lotus. I love this photograph. Um, and so a lot of, again, what we're doing is helping you to drop into things that are occurring so you can be more present to what is rather than trying to change what is. And so the way that we use this is sometimes as a warm up, as we have in other programs, but just as a reminder of what the overall pattern looks like. So I want to just give you a chance for we'll do this live, even though you're listening at your own convenience. I'd like to just walk you through this, just so you get a feel for this. If you're new to my work, this will give you a sense for what our larger practices are like. So to do that, I would just invite you, as you're listening to this, to just quiet yourself and sit comfortably in your chair. Maybe you feel your toes wiggling on the floor and your hips relax and settle in the chair. Maybe your back can just relax against the back of the chair rather than striving to move forward to type. And there's no need to breathe in any special way. Just let your body breathe you. And on your next exhale, I would like you just to think about what's going on in your life for which you imagine the retreat would be helpful. And just allow whatever emerges to come into your mind or into your heart. And when you feel ready, as you allow yourself to maybe exhale deeply again and see if that takes you deeper in an understanding. As you continue to breathe through your belly, just notice your body relaxing. And as it relaxes, there's a little bit of striving that you can let go of. To distrust, like what's wanting to bubble up as you hold in your mind's eye what might bring you to the retreat. And just notice what arises. No judgments, no labels, no attachments. Can you be with and trust what's emerging, whether you like it or not? As you continue to focus on your exhale, if you were to speak now, what might you say? Perhaps that you could not say before. And obviously, you're at home or at work by yourself. So if there's something that emerges, you might want to write it down and just note, wow, where did that come from? What seems true for me now that I might want to pay attention to while I'm on the retreat? When you're ready, just open your eyes and come back to the room and we'll finish up with our last couple of slides. If you want to take some notes for yourself, just pause the video and then restart it when you're ready. All right, so this is a very simplified version of the structure we'll use for our guided practice each time we meet. Um, and so we have our kind of, if you've taken narrative coaching, you'll recognize these five S's. This also, the model also builds on my newest work, The Five Maturities, which is sort of a guide for thinking about developing and assessing coaches. We're using them here as a structure for thinking about sort of the foundation building of our own maturation. And so, in the end, what I've discovered with this original narrative coaching model, because it's based in anthropology and uh, um, and the like, that it's based on a rite of passage. which makes this pattern that we teach through narrative coaching and everything else a universal one. And so every time I create a new language of this, it matches the same universal pattern. And so for each of the arrows, these are our sort of our maturity. So we'll have one is orientation, then we'll move into personal maturity, spiritual maturity, professional maturity, social maturity, and then contextual maturity, and then on out to the ending integration sessions. And when you come to the retreat itself, we'll go into enough detail about what each of these maturities mean. But again, it provides a really nice and handy sort of structure to focus, like what specifically do I need to develop to help me be stronger or more able to move towards what I want. And in essence, personal maturity is your capacity. What can you draw on in yourself? And so, what you might start to discover is that we just accept the situation as it is, but you might discover that part of what's holding you back is your own capacity. And so, what we'll do is in our first threshold, we're going to explore grief. And so, this is some language and work to be done to actually help us understand, like, where am I holding my breath? Where am I holding myself back? What is underdeveloped in me because there's still too much loss equated with it? Or what did I give away as a child that I'd like back because I don't have it now to draw on in myself? And so again, you'll think, well, how do these actually go together? Well, the thing that's so beautiful is, like, when I developed this, I realized that everything fell in the right sequence. But then when we moved through this, it just made it so clear why it was this way, even though it might not seem obvious at first. And everything's in service of moving around this spiral one time. And then you can take this model after the retreat and keep using it if you so choose. And so yeah, and the empath will explain that when we get to the bigger program. But for now, I'd just like to share the other thresholds so you have a sense of them. So our attachment threshold, as we move from sort of spiritual maturity, which is what we can see, to professional maturity, which is what we can do well. Part of what makes that movement difficult at times for us is it because we bump into attachment issues about speaking up, challenging the authority, or following the orders of the authority, or allowing ourselves to see ourselves as equal as somebody else, as opposed to above or below. And so the attachment work again helps you understand, particular thresholds that are difficult for you, and moving on to the next level of maturity for yourself. And yeah, you don't need all of these every time, and they don't always fall exactly in this order. But the flow of this is just so organically true that it could just I come back again and again and again. Even if we need to, like, go out of order to go dive deeper into one space, we just keep coming back to this flow, which means you can relax because you don't have to actually. You're not learning things in that traditional sense of we're having to memorize things or study things. It's really just an experience of your own inner self. The next threshold is around trauma. So when we move from the work that we're doing, like in narrative coaching, in that sort of experimentation phase, through building up new behaviors, we have to go home. We have to take that back to the world. Well, again, oftentimes where that becomes challenging, we don't do very well, or we hold back, or we overdo it. It's often because we have fragmented selves that have been impacted by things we found traumatizing. And so we'll do some work there to help us begin to heal ourselves so we can actually enact and embody and sustain what we've developed through our own inner work. And again, I've done a lot of stuff in these last few months to do a fair bit in this space, in particular around a series of traumas in my life that I'm now, many, many years later, unfortunately, discovering sort of fall into the same pattern each time. And so, by rather than looking at healing symptoms or episodes, I'm now working on healing patterns, which again is the more you work with this cycle, the more you can elevate between incidents to sort of preferences, all the way up to patterns. And I find that quite powerful. And you can use this in the moment. I did that when I was at a conference recently, and I was getting the early stage of flu, and the weather was horrible, and there was a lot of stress at that particular time for a number of reasons. And I could use this to kind of reorient myself and come back to a different pattern that was going to be more productive. And I could provide more leadership in the midst of the stressors that were occurring around us. Um, And so then if we move from there all the way around to the top, then we come to embodiment. So the beauty of our body is it doesn't forget. And oftentimes we get lost in our head and worried about things or overthinking things. And so this threshold is, can you allow into your own body, into your own life and psyche and soul, that which you've discovered on this journey? That's what social maturity brings us. It has everything to do with what we can do wisely or with discernment. Therefore, often can do much better than just having the pure skill itself. But actually, I can do this in the course of the process in real time. I can improvise what I know how to do. And then the last pairing comes down to spiral. And this is contextual maturity. This has everything to do with your identity and what how you see yourself and what you can and what you bring to any moment in time. And this is a really powerful piece for us in terms of being able to fully embody and embrace whatever we've discovered thus far in the journey. This is where things start to become clearer about why you joined the retreat in the first place. And then the threshold here is an interesting one. At first, some people thought was surprising, and even I was surprised at first that it fit here perfectly. And when I realized it, I saw it so clearly. The intuition that drew me to put it here, I knew it was right, but I wasn't even sure why when I built the model. But I just trusted. I said, I think this is right. And then when we did the retreat at our last integration session, and we're working on shadow. And what realized why it fit is that this is the threshold to come back around the top, back to situate. Well, we're not the same person as the person who left situate the first time. And oftentimes we're discovering things we would like to have be different about ourselves or different about our life or our practice or our habits. Well, that's going to require energy you often don't give yourself the permission to use. And so you might decide, hey, I've been a collaborator for a long time, or I've been helping other people for a long time, or I've been supporting things in my life because I thought it was important. But I now want to do things more for myself. I feel called to do some new things. And if still in servant mode, it's not that I'm going to get rid of that. It's just saying I might need some other energy that's going to be in shadow for me. And well, again, we'll explain that when we get there. But these are basically things that we didn't feel safe to bring into our psyche when we were young. And so you might say, my shadow energy is that of a narcissist, not because you want to be a narcissist, but because there's energy there. It's just energy. It's not good or bad. That you might be helpful. Like, I want to learn how to stand up for myself. I want to learn how to make more of my own choices. I want to learn for myself what I do so beautifully for others. That means I have to go in to assert myself in the world, tell people what I want, ask for help. And so this threshold is huge. And I think this is what actually helped a lot of people integrate and fully recognize how far they'd come on their retreat. Why? Because they now felt more whole and energized. They could now, this part that was banished, which sort of was a black hole for them, was now slowly starting to integrate. So they had so much more to bring to whatever it is that they came to the retreat for. And then our last few sessions of the retreat are to help you pull all this together, figure out what it means, figure out what you might want to do differently as a result. So I'm hoping this is clear enough for now. There's a whole bunch more behind this. Each week we'll go on kind of one of the core elements from 1 to 10. and give you plenty of time to talk about it, practice it, uh, participate in guided practice around it, et cetera, et cetera. But anyways, I'm hoping this is inspiring you to come join us for the retreat. So our last slide. Uh, so we all know the famous phrase, "It takes a village to raise a child," which is still very true. And but I think what I realized is that the same is true for us. Oftentimes we belong to groups and associations, and we had colleagues and friends. But there's something about the time we live in now, and I've been to three conferences over the last 3 weeks in three different cities, and they all were profoundly different, and they all were important in each in their own way. But the one that I enjoyed the most was, in some ways, the most chaotic and the most divergent and the most random in some ways. But what I liked about it was that organizers, and these were my delightful colleagues at ICF Germany, as well as from NYU, was everything was about relationship. Even like organizing the break drinks and goodies in the space between where everybody had to pass. And so, so everybody kept mingling. And what I really took from that is that the days of us working on our own and forging ahead are gone. That the capacity to build sustaining relationships, deep sustaining relationships with ourselves and with each other is vital. Way more than I think that it's ever been, because everything seems to be devolving at the moment, and it seems like everything needs reinvention. These are collective efforts. And so, again, I'll just close. In some ways, it's an odd thing to say, perhaps at the end, talking about a personal retreat. But what I found in the end, because we're not burdening the retreat with lots of content, it's all about your experiences in yourself and with each other. And for me, that's to really showcase that the value of this is doing this work for yourself so you can do it with and for others. And to recognize that we're being called into new spaces and that this image of forming a village out of our retreat community and that we can all draw on to sustain ourselves as practitioners. So I'm going to thank you for your time. Again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us at themomentinstitute.com at MI Connect. And we hope that you'll come and join us next Wednesday for the orientation. If you need a little bit of extra time, the first session is not till the following week, so you have a chance to catch up easily. But we're hoping that you'll come and be part of this wonderful cohort. And until then, I wish you all the best wherever you are in the world. Take good care, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.